Okay, I'm going to go over what I came up with as a solution for each of these things. Did anybody not finish?
What's that? Anybody not fit? Unfinished.
Okay. All right. So audio video section is the first section. First product we had was the Sonos amp. I had the Sonos amp located in the rack. It's getting power via 110. It's wired network connection. And we are controlling it via IP. Audio in. The way I saw it working is that one of these TVs is going to be connected to the Yamaha. One of these TVs is going to be connected to Sonos. Okay? That made sense to everybody? For audio? Okay. So I chose TV number 1 as my Sonos TV and TV number 2 as my Yamaha TV. So it was mentioned specifically in the description that these have Fire TV abilities built into them. So with that being said, we need to get the audio from these TVs into our audio because we mentioned it. A lot of times we will not mention smart TV functionality because of this problem. Okay, but in this application we mentioned it, so that means that we thought about it and it's going to happen. So we need to make it happen. So because of that, we have audio into the Sonos is going to come. It's actually very easy on TV number 1. It's going to be ARC out of the TV into the Sonos. That's going to get us the streaming from that TV, and it's also going to get us any of the sources that are plugged into the TV itself. Audio out is 16 gauge to the speakers, and there's no video in or out of the Sonos amp.
So I wrote on there for the Sonos amp on the audio in, network and HDMI ARC from TV. Is that the same thing or no?
Say it again?
Network and HDMI ARC from TV for the audio in.
Network? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, Sonos amp, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Next product on the list was the CR260 remote. Battery powered, Zigbee, no audio video. Goes in the room. Next piece we had was the Yamaha receiver. It gets power via 110. It's going to be hardwired network connection. We're going to control it over IP. Here's the things that gets a little bit weird. How is it going to get audio in? It's going to get audio in from the MOIP receiver's HDMI out. Okay. We're going to use 16 gauge to speakers for audio out. Video in is going to be from the MOIP receiver HDMI out, but the video out is going to be HDMI to TV number 2 in my design.
I need you to do that one again.
I missed, there's one piece I'm missing also on the audio in on here. I have it on the TV side, but I don't have it on the audio in. So audio, we just did audio video, right?
Yep.
Okay, so on the Yamaha audio in is the MOIP receiver's HDMI out. Also, we should have optical out of the TV to video in.
I can't fiddle
I'm
this.
sorry, which one was that?
This is the Yamaha receiver. We need to have MOIP so we can hear all the video sources, but we need optical from the TV so we can listen to the smart TV functions.
Okay.
So we can listen to Fire TV.
That's your Yamaha ARC.
Unless your Yamaha has ARC, which, yeah, this one probably does, right?
I think all, I don't know what the 600 does, but the rest of them do.
Okay.
I got the out to the speakers. I never saw
Okay.
speakers in here. Did I just miss them?
There's no speakers. I just put speakers.
So that's why I didn't put that on there because I never saw them in.
Yep, that's a good catch. So you should be asking if you were doing this and it was actually real. Oh crap, we forgot the speakers.
Yeah.
And we say, oh no, they're on the Gulf Shore proposal.
No, I forgot to wire them.
Oh, you forgot to wire them. Oh crap. Okay. MOIP receiver, HDMI out is how we're getting video in to the Yamaha.
MOIP receiver HDMI out was okay. The same as the audio.
Yep. And the video out is going HDMI to the TV. Okay, Insignia TV number 1 goes above the rack, gets power via 110. It's going to get network via wire connection. We're going to control it via IR. Audio in comes from, on TV number 1, is going to come from the MOIP receiver and also from streaming via the Fire TV. We're going to go audio out via ARC to the Sonos amp. We're going to go video in via the MOIP receiver. And we're going to do video out via to your eyes. Any questions on that? Okay, Insignia TV number 2 is going above the rack. We're controlling it via IR. Gets wired. Audio in is streaming.
Which one?
Insignia TV number 2 is streaming.
For video?
There's for audio in. There's no other audio into TV number 2 because the audio will stop at the Yamaha. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is all messed up for me.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so on Insignia TV number 2, because it's connected to the Yamaha, the only way it's going to get audio in, even though it's technically coming via the HDMI, logically we're never going to have audio into the TV.
Right, because it's built in.
So the only audio in is coming from the Fire TV directly itself, so streaming. Or you could write Fire TV.
So if you think of it in Control 4 terms, the Yamaha, the audio endpoint, not the TV.
So, sorry. Real quick, you mentioned you're gonna try to incorporate this in jobs we do now?
The sheet?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
You'll have,
Just
I
an
can
idea
get you the
for
sheet,
if
but
we want to do it.
yeah,
Okay.
you wanna do this, you're more than welcome to. And I would encourage you that no matter what, to think this way, that's the whole point of this. This is kinda like when they force you to do books in accounting,
Yeah.
when they show you QuickBooks,
Okay.
you don't actually end up doing books, ever. I don't know if you guys have ever taken accounting, but this is the books part of accounting.
I think-
You don't actually ever do this. You can, if you really want to, you find this helpful, do it a couple times.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't need it, you should just start to do this in your mind, kind of thinking through
Right.
things.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Insignia TV number 2, we talked audio in is streaming, okay? Audio out, it's optical to the Yamaha, or as Chris pointed out, it could have possibly been an ARC to the Yamaha if the Yamaha supports ARC. Video in, it's going to get it via the Yamaha's HDMI out. The MOIP receiver will not go directly into the TV. However, if the Yamaha supported ARC, you could put the MOIP into the TV and do the same thing I did with the Sonos. Put the MOIP into the TV and then do ARC out into the Yamaha. That make sense? Might be a little bit simpler that way. It's less cabling that way. One less cable. And we get video out to your eyes. Roku Premiere goes into the rack, gets connected via Wi-Fi only. It's controlled over IP. Audio in is via streaming. It gets connected to a MOIP transmitter. Video in via streaming. Video out via MOIP transmitter. Once it's in the MOIP system, it can go to any MOIP receiver, right?
So for audio and video in on those, I just put not applicable
For which ones?
for the Roku.
The Roku definitely has audio video in, because you need to be able to hear and see the Roku's content.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but it's.
Oh, you're saying the
when
in itself.
When you say audio in and audio out, like
Got
I
you.
think of the ports.
You-
Like I'm not going to plug anything.
You're thinking
in.
of Control 4 specifically,
Yeah.
yes, you are absolutely
Like I
correct,
understand
yes.
that it's a source box, so I'm
Gotcha.
not giving it a source. Like
No
it
problem.
is my source.
Right.
Absolutely. If you don't want to write streaming, that's fine with me. I just like to think of it that way so I can understand how I'm getting my audio video even from it, so I understand the importance of the network for that device. It's streaming, so it needs to be a good connection. But no, for Control 4 programming, it's completely irrelevant.
Oh, now I see why you would say that. Got it.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, equipment rack and control was the next section. We had an EA1 V2 on here. It's going to go in the rack. It's going to connect power via 110. It's going to be wired to the network. It's going to be controlled over IP. Audio in we're not gonna use it as an audio source, so I put nothing. Audio out is HDMI into transmitter. Video in, I said self. It's not really streaming, you could say non-applicable, you could say whatever you want, but it's coming from itself, it's got a video source of its own, right? And that's just the on-screen display. And then video out, HDMI into MOIP transmitter. So, two things going into the MOIP transmitter, the EA1 and the Roku. Two things connected to the receivers, that's TV1 and the Yamaha receiver.
So just to clarify, like when I've done EAs for customers, I've not hooked up.
We never do it.
Okay.
We probably never will do it. Yeah. It's
What?
Good to clarify.
The
To do
on-screen display,
Yeah.
unless
I
they
figure if they
specifically
hit
want
that,
it.
you know,
Uh-huh.
it might even confuse them more than anything else.
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I don't like it. I have to sell too many EAs to, and I think it's corny. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But
Okay.
maybe customers would like it.
The app is good, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sold on the on-screen display.
Right.
Maybe I should be. I'd probably make more money if I did, but whatever. Okay, next piece is PWR 360 6-foot extension. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I don't even think I put that
Yeah,
on
that's
there.
what I
I skipped right over it because I didn't feel like it had a place on there.
The next piece is the Wattbox AC 300 VB RM. Same idea. It's just a
One thing, wired IP.
no, not that one. So the next one is the WB 300
That's just the
VB
rack kit.
IB5. That is a 5-port Wattbox oversea device. That is important to put on here, and that it gets a wired IP connection and it gets controlled over IP. I don't know if you guys know this, but quick side note again, I just was reminded of this, that you can integrate oversea with Control 4, meaning there is a Control 4 driver for oversea. So if you ever had the function of wanting to power cycle cable boxes via Control 4, you could. If you put the cable boxes all on to port number 1, you can actually connect it via IP, and you could put a custom button that says power cycle cable boxes, and it would turn off port number 1.
With more information with that, so if we're able to connect those to reset that cable box, wouldn't, since we're doing MOIP, wouldn't we have access to physically view the system since it's over IP? So in case we are troubleshooting a
Yeah.
cable box on, let's just say, the Null residence, they're having a problem, instead of driving all the way down there, we can just pull up a computer, see it
See
through.
if it's working.
Oh, it's giving a DirecTV message, like you have to contact America, or we can call it like, hey, we're trying to,
Yeah.
instead of driving all the way
Cut
there
down
and back.
So many service calls.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, my inputs are all over.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Okay. So the Furman doesn't really need to be mentioned. It's a surge protector. The rack, I put LOL. The switch is going in the rack. It's a TLSG 1024. It's a 24-port switch. It's actually SF. I think these particular ones are very special SF ones, which is super fast. Is what that stands for. They're megabit. Okay, they're not gigabit.
Yeah.
110, and they're going to be wired. The Unify access point is powered over PoE, and it gets networked via wired connection. And we have the switch, or I'm sorry, the router itself, it gets powered over 110, and it gets a wired network connection. I'm skipping over all the audio video because it's not relevant for any of these things, right? We have the video distribution that has an AN210 SWR8 PoE. That is an 8-port PoE Arachnus switch. Anytime you see an Arachnus PoE switch, it is most likely a MOIP switch, and that's exactly what this one is. We have a MOIP controller, the B900 4K controller. It gets rack location. It gets power over 110. It is wired to the network, and we're going to control it via IP. Okay, now the fun. We have the 2 receivers and the 2 transmitters. We'll start with receiver number 1, which I connected to TV number 1. It's going to go in the rack / TV, really behind the TV, but in this case, kind of in the rack. It gets power over PoE. Control is IP. Audio in is network via the MOIP. Audio out is TV number 1. Video in is network via the MOIP. Video out is TV number 1. HDMI. HDMI for both of those. Any questions on that?
Brett, but
Receiver
it's
number
wired,
one.
it's wired into the network. I just didn't hear you say
Yeah,
wireless or
wired in the
Wi-Fi.
network. It's wired in the network because it's a MOIP receiver. It has to be
Yeah.
hardwired.
Yep.
I cannot do Wi-Fi.
I just didn't hear you say it. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know if they're gonna come out with like a video matrix type point where you plug it into the actual switch and then it just, so you don't need transmitters, basically? You
Is
know what I'm
it
saying?
the
like
transmitter and the
control
receiver that do the
Yeah.
coding and decoding?
Probably not.
No?
No,
Probably
it's
not gonna do
probably
that.
not to your
Yeah.
question. Is that kind of, he's wondering like the control for matrix, like he's wondering if
So,
it's
like,
like
you
one
can
big
plug-
box that you
yeah.
plug in.
Got you. No.
Things and stuff.
They're never gonna do
I
that, you
don't
don't
think
think?
so. I hope not.
Do I?
Just
Okay.
yeah. I like.
Because when you start getting into those boxes, then you get confined to, that's how many you get. So this is
Right.
designed to be
Yeah,
able,
well-
be scalable for
Okay.
however size
Yeah,
you want.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, receiver number 2, I decided to do the Yamaha through that one, so that one is connected directly to, it's PoE powered, it's wired network, it's IP control, gets audio in and video in via the network. Okay, but then it has HDMI going to the Yamaha on HDMI in. And same thing for the video. So audio and video go over an HDMI cable to the Yamaha's HDMI in. That's how I wired it. But again, you could also put that receiver behind the TV and do the same thing as receiver number 1 and plug the HDMI ARC out of the TV into Yamaha's HDMI ARC, assuming that the Yamaha has ARC. Then we have the 2 transmitters, pretty straightforward. The transmitters are going to connect one to the Roku, one to the EA1, and they're going to go HDMI out of those devices into each of the transmitters. So if I read that off, it's transmitter 1 is rack, PoE, wired IP, audio in is Roku, HDMI, audio out is to the network, video in is Roku, HDMI, video out to the network. Transmitter number 2 is rack, PoE powered, wired network, IP control. EA1 is the audio in via HDMI, goes into the network, video in via EA1's HDMI out, video out to the network. Okay.
I can do the specific thing, I just generalize information not from source via network or HDMI from source.
You can do that too, yeah, because it really doesn't matter which one gets which. I mean, it does in programming, but in this application it doesn't. Okay. Now I burn through all the time. Turn it over to my compadre, Chris. Yeah, right.
Alright, so we're just gonna kinda go through, there's an outline there, we're gonna go through this quickly, because we're gonna start physically putting this stuff in the rack. And so, the first and most important part is what we just did, is looking through the proposal and figuring out, okay, what is it exactly that we're doing on this job? What's the end goal for particular rooms, for the house as a whole? What's the equipment that we're putting in there, and where's all the equipment going? Because once we're able to go through and we have a list of the equipment that we have and that we need, we can then start to figure out how the sucker's gonna fit inside of a rack or 2 racks. And based on a lot of different factors, we'll determine how we put this in there. If there's 1 rack, if there's 2, if you're doing a Morris and we're splitting it up that way or whatever. There's a lot of different factors that go into making sure that the rack is installed properly, installed functionally, and pretty, I guess would be the other E. So yeah, look through the proposal. If you want to do that sheet, go for it, but just kind of making the mental note of, all right, this is what we're doing MOIP at this house, or we're not doing MOIP at this house, we're just doing standard balings, or, whatever. So you get an idea of the overview of how the house is going to work and the layout of it. Once, excuse me, once we have all that kind of stuff figured out, then it comes to putting the stuff into the rack. And the reason that we're really kind of emphasizing this week, 1, we got to build these racks before we can start doing other stuff with them. But 2, we've been talking, and one of the things that we're going to start doing pretty much regularly now for these big jobs is we're going to be building the racks before we take them to the job sites. So we're going to build them here in-house, get all the components that we can into them, get them in, secured, working, even potentially a little bit of programming if possible, and then wheeling it to the job site and just kind of dropping it in place where we can start then connecting it to the house. So, section B on here is plan it out. You've got a list of equipment in the proposal. You can either write it all out separately or just keep the proposal, but you've got to plan out, all right, these are all the components that I am going to have inside of this rack. Now I gotta figure out where to put it in. So the list here is the factors to take into account when you are doing that. First one is size, looking at the size of that particular piece of equipment, width, depth, height, and making sure that it is actually all going to fit inside of a rack. Second is weight. Typically you want to put all the heavy stuff towards the middle or the bottom, because if it's all the heavy stuff is on top, as soon as you start rolling, it's going to tip and it's going to crush Andrew, because he'll probably be the one putting it in the van. So the physical characteristics of the unit really matters in where you put it. Next factor is heat. Every single one of these suckers puts out heat, and some of them put out more than the others. And when you take heat into account, that really helps you with the spacing of the equipment. So we're not gonna take amps that we know are gonna get hot, or we're not gonna take cable boxes and just stack them one right on top of the other, because all that heat's gonna get trapped as it's stuck inside there, it doesn't have anywhere to move, and eventually your stuff's just gonna die a lot faster. So you really have to take into account heat and looking at the equipment itself, looking at the switches. Is it a PoE switch? If it is, it's going to put out more heat than a non-PoE switch. Is there a fan on there? Does it vent out the back? Does it vent out the sides? Does it vent out the top or the bottom? Looking at how those all get that heat out of itself and taking that into account as well. Where if you're, in some instances, as we look at the physical size and we look at all the equipment that's going in there, and we say, oh man, we've only got enough room for like one space of heat dissipation here. And we're just cramming it all in there, we're sticking stuff on top like on Conti or whatever. We've got to look at how these devices get rid of that heat. So if something outputs out the top and another device is sitting right on top of it, that's not going to be good for it. If it's outputting the sides, then maybe you can stick something else on top of it. You've got to become familiar by looking at the equipment itself, just looking at it quickly and being like, okay, I see how this is venting, and then that'll help determine what you're placing it next to. Looking at interconnection, power cables, and power needs. Is this PoE? If it is, then maybe I need to get it near the PoE switch. If it's needs 110, then getting it close to the power strips or the surge protectors, or I need more surge protectors down here because I've got my power strip up top. And so you've got to take in every factor of what makes this machine work when you're putting it in there, because you've got to ultimately get the equipment not just in there, but working and serviceable. That's one of the biggest things for this, is not just shoving it in there and then we've got a rat's nest of whatever. It's just making sure that it's in there and it works, but it's serviceable, so that we can
Go back and trace.
go back and fix it when the Blu-ray player locks up again, or whatever. Looking at it, is it rack mounted? Does it need a shelf? If it needs a shelf, how big of a shelf does it need? How many spaces is that going to take up? You really, you've got to just break things. You've really got to take it all through the proposal, or if you've got it physically there, and just kind of map it out before you start putting stuff in there. Because you can kind of wing it and just start fitting things here, and maybe I'll fit it here, but then you find out, oh crap, my switch will only fit here, and I gotta put everything down here, so I need to route all the wires down there, or I gotta move things up and down. And planning this ahead of time will save a lot of headache after you're halfway through it already. And I've done that a lot. So once you've got that planned out, then you put it in. You're physically putting in there the stuff. And as you're putting it in there, you're keeping in mind the pieces you have, but the pieces that you don't have. So If we don't have the customer's cable boxes, and you know they're getting cable boxes, and you know how many are going in here, you gotta leave space for it, because you don't wanna put it all in there and be like, crap, I've gotta find more room for that. So cable boxes, for these setups here, I know there's one piece that's missing, that it's the Sonos. We haven't gotten them in yet, cause we can't get them until May, the stupid dealer thing. So you've gotta just keep that in mind of everything like that.
I was gonna say, we shouldn't even put Comcast boxes on the rack anymore.
Right? Right? Gosh.
Should be in front.
Keep them serviceable where they just
Right.
Right.
need to make like
Replaceable, it's like a hot
cassettes.
swap.
That's swap hard drive trays for.
We should just offer our own cable service, since when Comcast doesn't work, they
Hey.
call us anyway.
And you'll
This
get
guy
it
over
set
here,
up.
man,
and-
just charge $20
Raise the price to $30 a year.
So you yeah, start putting it in there, and then my philosophy has, and what I have found to be true most often, is when you're putting it in here and we start making the connections, we start testing it out, it's to make it work first and then make it pretty. So like, not, having like a tangle of wires and a big ball of mess that you've got kind of hanging over here, but as we're putting wires and running them in there, we're not trimming them to length before we know that it actually works. Because if we cut a cat so that it fits exactly into that switch and it looks
Right.
great, and that's not, and we've got to re-terminate that thing, and now it's this much too short, got to rerun that whole thing again. So make it work first and then make it pretty. And one of the best ways that I've found that to be is, instead of when I'm wiring up a rack, instead of using zip ties every time to hold them in place, use Velcro. Because then I can take it off and add another wire in, take it off, add another wire in, and I'm not having to keep cutting zip ties, and I'm not pulling them so tight that it's breaking my wires and that kind of thing. So make it work before, and then make it pretty. Keep it serviceable. So as we are running our wires, we've just got to kind of use logic. We've got to be able to get our hands in and out of here. We've got to be able to adjust it, manipulate it, and connect things, and not just me, but whoever else is going to come in behind us to service this thing. We've got to make it so that it's as easy as possible to do this. And one of the best ways to do that is making sure we don't have clutter inside. When we're using the lacer bars, typically in the past, all we've done is use the flat lacer bars. So it's just the ones that just go straight across, and we tie our wires to it. And if we've got a patch panel here, then we've got a Cat 5 that runs all the way here, and you've got 2 feet of cat in there that's just kind of hanging and dangling, and you've got to kind of work around to get that into. They make different sizes, so you've got flat, you've got a 2-inch, you've got a 4-inch depth that's like this. So if you've got an amp that's sitting this deep, and I put my lacer bar in here, then my wires that I'm running, my jumpers from here to the amp, are now just like 2 inches long, instead of this 6-inch long wire in the back that I'm accidentally hitting every time I'm reaching into it. And then you've got all this empty space to get your hands in and work a little bit better. So keeping it free of clutter.
This is on the back of the rack?
Yeah, on the back of the rack. Yeah, keeping it free of clutter, and not really kind of finalizing the zip ties and the flow of it until you're ready to kind of solidify it and say that's done. And yes.
Are we gonna try to not do like doors and stuff anymore? Are we gonna try to do open racks?
We did open racks here because they're cheaper.
Oh, okay. It's a lot
So
easier to work on.
well, it is.
Well, the other racks, they can be this very
They should
same way,
be
you just
easily
pop
made.
the side
Right,
off.
that's true.
Right,
Okay.
and so as we're building them here, we'll
Alright,
probably
yeah.
have all 4 sides open as we're
Yeah.
building it, and then just
Okay.
reassemble it.
You
so
should
it
be able to
looks
get any of
nice.
the enclosed racks.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay.
But since we are gonna be building them here and then transporting them elsewhere, we do need to make sure whatever we're putting in here is secure. So if you've got a Roku or DVD player just sitting on the shelf inside of there, we gotta make sure that we're strapping it down so that when we tip that thing, it's not falling off and cables aren't swinging around and popping out the back and all that fun crap. So planning is key, and once you've got it kind of planned out, then it'll go a lot smoother, and questions, thoughts? When you're putting the equipment in, like today and anywhere else, if you're using a drill, make sure you're using like a driver and not like an actual drill set on drill settings, because when you tighten these things too tight, when we try to get them out afterwards, we're stripping them, we gotta drill the thing out and pull it back out, and we've done it too many times too. So secure but not too secure.
Like a 4 or something on your
Right.
grill, I mean, yeah.
Right. Nice and light.
Yeah.
But yeah, common sense approach to it of heat and depth and width. And when you're stacking equipment here, as we said, take depth into account. So if you've got an EA1 that is this shallow and you need to be able to reach to it and plug in IRs and that kind of stuff, don't stack something on the top and the bottom that are this deep to where you can't reach it. We all know that's a pain in the butt. So just kind of think it through.
Thinking. It's easier just to throw everything in the rack and say, oh, it's built, but then
Yeah.
that makes it more difficult.
We transport.
So if you have any questions, we can start at it. The one thing that the only piece of equipment that I always stick at the top is the Furmans, and that's just because they've got lights on them, and you can pull the lights out in the front and they shine down. So if the
Pretty-
racks,
they look cool,
if the
yeah.
closet's dark, there's little lights that you pull out and you turn it on, and it'll shine down below. So that's useful up top. If you put it down low, then it doesn't do anything. for
I
the
never
inside.
even knew that they did that. Yeah, nor did I.
Yeah, they do. That's that little lamp dial on them.
Those two little circles that are on the front, you just pull them out, and there's little light bulbs in it. And
I think I know where you're talking about, I just didn't know they
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
Turn down the power.
Yeah, I thought they were just knobs for like.
Just cuts.
So we got 4 racks.
4 people.
4 people.
I mean, we can get started now.
Should we just
If
a box
you want,
maybe,
or-
or?
We could plan, I mean, we could plan it out. I'll stop this
Okay.
recording
Yeah.
here.